Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Jacob Silverblade, and today we're talking about the balance update. But first, I do want to give just give my thoughts overall on how the game is going so far up to this point from my last previous video, where I've said in my last previous, well, no, not the tournament one, but changes I feel like which needed to happen to this game. Now, even though they haven't done all of them, I will say that they've made some. I think the game is actually in a really good spot right now. I think I love the spot the game is in right now. With the changes which I'm going to see here, and then also the recent orks are being added in and stuff, and like the new cards from there, I think the game is a really exciting place. I think it's really fun. I think there's lots of interesting things you can do. And I think every single faction has a viable chance of actually, you know, getting to top 50. I think you can use any of the factions. There's some weak ones out there for certain. Necrons, what we want to see here with the Necrons being updated, I still think they're not on the strongest side. I think there still is stronger factions. However, I think you can still use any one of these factions and actually be able to make it. And I think that credit goes to Everguild being able for doing this, and this somewhat taken on board maybe my video, but that might be too much piping my own trumpet, whatever it's called, however the saying goes. But probably just listening to community in general, just doing things that we have generally asked, and I really appreciate that. So with that being said, we're now getting on to the changes here, and then I'm also going to be talking about the orc cards and how they made some last minute changes to the orc cards which really helped them from not being just another constant expansion of being absolutely broken into the next expansion being absolutely broken. For these last minute changes, I really appreciate it. They don't seem to me to be absolutely broken. Still absolutely strong. There's going to be some, you know, very powerful decks going to come out, but I'm not seeing anything which is going to be overly oppressive personally, which I really like. So going to be getting onto some few things here. First thing is Gene Stealers. Now we've got the Roaming Outriders, which used to be 4 cost, and my golly, did I make this clear in my video? Gene Stealers having Roman Outriders at 4 cost was way too much, particularly with Primus Safriana. Now, of course, they didn't do the thing I said with Primus Safriana, and I shall clarify that, but Roman Outriders just did way too much as a 4 energy card. And it's appropriate that it is a 5 energy card now, and that this one Gene Stealer build isn't just way better than the rest. Not only that, but actually way better than generally the game because of this one card existing. And I'm glad they were able to deal with it, and they made that change where it was needed, really. So I'm glad they have done that. Now I should go on to say Primus Safriana from my last video about changes I'd like to see. That was just a general change. I'd like to see the Primus Safriana just because I genuinely believe that out of all the GSC Warlords, if you want to go competitively and like get the highest rank, you're always going to use Primus Safriana, and you're never going to use any of the other Warlords. It's a bit like Tyranids the Swarmlord. Like in the past, you just always use Swarmlord, and you didn't use any of the other Warlords. You didn't play any of the other guys. You just used the Swarmlord. That's what you did. You didn't use anybody else, because the other ones weren't as good, and the balance was completely balanced around Swarmlord. And that's what I was trying to really get at with the Primus Safriana. Everything has to be balanced around Primus Safriana, which means that because she's way stronger than the rest with our combo potential, which means that you're always going to use Primus Safriana whenever you do stuff. I even think there are sabotage builds, you're better off using Primus Safriana than Sonari. If you want to go late game value, I think your Primus Safriana is a better bet than Magus. I genuinely believe this. I think you're better off doing it, just having small combos here and there, because even Magus does some cool combos you have to do as GSC. But I think with Primus Safriana, you're much more liably than able to get stuff off, and since I think just late game value, trying to do kind of same sort of style of deck, Primus Safriana, I think it's just still better. And if you want to go aggro, well, you got combo aggro builds you can do with Primus Afriana, which is probably just better than playing what's that 3NG, not 35 health Warlord, the other one. I forget the other Primus Gene Occult Warlord. So I still stand by my decision, to be frankly honest, on Primus Afriana, and how I don't see why you don't use that Warlord, and I don't see why you don't use, like, I think it removes all creativity from all the other Warlords, because I think you just use Primus Afriana. So I still stand by that, and how that is a card I believe does need to be changed. Make it more unique, make it more specific into Pacific playstyle unique, instead of this just I'm able to draw whatever I want at any time sort of card. That's what I was thinking behind it, and I would like to see something around that, so that it's just not automatically the best Warlord, which I think for GSC absolutely is the case. Now we've got some orcs. I'm going to go through this with the orc changes, but basically this change here is just when the orcs got updated, some things got updated with it, certain cards. It would have been nice to know about these cards getting changed beforehand, but for example the orc knob was changed so that when you play a troop, give it flank, you have to play, means now play from hand instead of deploy, which means just deploy in general. So hence it's now been changed to, of course, have flank innately. That was just with the update, with changes, and it's probably a smart idea, because otherwise you will get into infinite combos with orcs, where you could use the new 4NG legendary where it deployed a orc grot, and then if you're able to get flank, you could basically infinite melee combo with that potential. Now it only gives it when you play it from hand, which I think it's actually smart from the developers, that these infinite combos have been changed so they don't literally go infinite. But I will say reverting this is very important, because the main strength of the Orc Knob was that he had a flank himself and he could give other things flank. The fact that that is not the case anymore, you know, it kind of broke the point of the card. It actually ended up becoming a really bad card. So you kind of want to, reverting it back so it has flank innately was a good idea. Now we're going to get into the big changes of the Necrons, and I really like this. I did say in my last video that Necrons absolutely needed a buff. They were absolutely the worst war faction in the game, and they all needed just a generic buff in general. We'll go through them. So, Imhotep the Stormlord is basically you get multiple, it's the same thing, but you get multiple copies if you manage to kill guys. So this becomes particularly powerful when you have the 6 energy card, which is able to decrease the cost of all your Necron hero powers. If you manage to get 2 of those off, of course now your hero power is free. So in theory you can just ping the entire board, and just able to constantly get multiple heals on yourself whilst dealing with multiple enemies. And then you also get the final ping to face. You do have to set things up, but it does mean that you're just getting that extra healing that you probably should have not got before, well, you wouldn't have got before, and it just enables certain plays. Ramatech, I did look at the Ramatech card, and your other destroyer units have +1 melee talent. Most of the guys actually have range attack being the main thing. You only have the flayed one and the Skull Effect Destroyer, which is the flank for 4 energy. So now that Skull Effect Destroyer is pretty scary, but I'm not seeing a particular major buff with this, because I'm not seeing go wide destroyer units being a particular thing right now. Majority of them have range attacks, and giving them +1 melee, like, it helps, because then they're on like counter attack, they're not as bad off, but I'm not seeing, oh wow, yes, I'm like, you know, the only major change I'm seeing here is with the 4 energy card being instead of a 5 attack flanker, it's now 6 attack flanker, which isn't bad at all, but it's a minor case. And then Orkan Diviner, I really appreciate this change here, because it supports not going for Scarabs, because Scarabs did not need any more support than it already had. Oh dear. But yes, it's trying to encourage other playstyles of Orkan Diviner, reanimating stuff, going for that healing one, so it's more survivable, and it means that you do more complex things with its talent. You're trying to go for more complex plays, which is what he was meant to be doing all the time, trying to top deck really complex things from the top of your deck, you know, using those artifice abilities going off and doing unexpected things, which hopefully this supports that, keeping alive to able to do those complex plays later on in the game. Some counter attack changes, basically +1 life for the 50 level vault version, and not vault, forge version, and then your beginner one as well. Ignore this is not technically correct. You just get extermination protocol in your hand, which is really quite nice. Funnily enough, that combines with scarabs quite well, annoyingly. So if you play a scarab and then you use this to kill something, you then get a 1 energy card which you can play straight away to attack face at least, and then that's 2 stratagems used in 1 turn to combine with scarabs, like guaranteed, which is annoying, but hey ho, this is I think it's a good support card, because the 0 energy deal 1 damage to enemy isn't really a great counter attack. It's pretty darn weak, to be frankly honest, so it probably should have got some change to make it more appropriate and actually able to combine better in general. And then this Vault 1 reanimating a friendly remnant, giving it +1 life as well, it's just a little extra bonus that it probably needed. This one, generate 2, so this is the 3 energy card, is it? I forget now. It's a Necron card. Basically, it's the one which gets the legendary gains stealth, and the idea is that, you know, someone like Titus with the Blast 2 could punch it, or punch the Warlord, and then deal 2 damage to it, even if it's in stealth, and then it doesn't recover from that, so you'd have to attack it and reanimate it every single time. But now with the regeneration 2, sort of like AoE effects can't affect it that badly because it heals up. So they actually have to be able to have a proper way of dealing it. Either they actually have to put in some proper anti-stealth, or you have to go along and go... So you either do the proper anti-stealth method, or you have to go along and get... I'm trying to think now. Gosh, sorry. Or you need like a no mucking about, or maybe you just need like four blasts from Titus or something like that. You actually have to deal with it properly. So if it's able to keep on getting that reanimation with the stealth going continuously with the generation, it can steer. It's actual proper scary threat. It's not just there with something which exists, you know, which I really appreciate. Tesla Mortal, it actually has, you know, a purpose now with it being the Artifice to deal 1 damage to random enemy. I really like that. It really combines with something like Orokin, because now he can get healing from the Tesla Mortal dying, and he can always activate those pings with the 1 damage, and I think it's a perfect card for Orokin and what he wants to be doing. This one at the end of turn, reanimate. This is the 5 energy legendary, and basically it kind of had weird counter synergies with the 35 health Warlord, which deployed a Necron Warrior all the time. I forget its name, but basically it had counter synergy because that Warlord already did a thing which technically this guy used to be doing. Now it just automatically reanimates at the end of your turn. I really like that. It just means that these things are reviving all the time and its effects are always going off. I think I really appreciate that. It gives you another way of... And it also means that you don't need to play a stratagem like an Artifice. For example, instead of like the 3 energy card, I think it's an epic card. I'm not entirely sure. But as Artifice to reanimate something, this is going to be 5 energy, but it's not guaranteed to do it. So you don't need to play anything else with it, which I really appreciate. Now, the Plasmancer. The Plasmancer has always been like a scary card in theory, with its Artifice doing 3 damage, because you could play a whole bunch of stratagems, get a whole bunch of damage all over the place. But it always just was like, I only has 4 attack in melee and range. It has 7 life, so you have to punch through it. So you have to deal with it typically, but it generally didn't cost that much to deal with it. Now with that really high stats, it will cost you something to deal with it, and then if you're able to get a whole bunch of Artifice going off with it, you can really put some damage on the board / wall face, which would be really quite scary. Now this is a crazy one. Hyperlogical Strategist costing 1. This has always been a good card, and now this is like a must-have card. This is like a crazy good card right now. I'm not really against it because Necrons kind of need something, and I appreciate that. It makes it excuse me, it also makes it more like smart and clever, if that makes sense. So you don't just have to, you know, think about, you have to actually think about what stratagem you want, which you can use later on, and then able to utilize that with 2 of these hyperlogical strategies. I think I really appreciate it just being a 1 energy. It also combines with Artifice a bit better, so they have this better, and Artifice enablers just being a 1 energy card. Overall, I think this is a really smart change. And yes, you could argue it's way too strong, just as you've been able to choose a Necron stratagem, but I also say that Necrons need something. So I really appreciate this. The final thing's Undying Legion. Basically, your Warlord gains a shield for that turn. This card wasn't even necessarily used on the perfect Warlord, which was the 35 HP Warlord, which I forget the name of, which deployed all the Necron warriors. It wasn't even used there, and that is the Warlord which keeps your remnants alive, so they actually have to deal with them instead of just ignoring them, which means that you can actually just punch through, which means that they actually have to punch through the shield and also destroy the Necron remnant at the same time. Which is crazy to me that that guy literally has the best synergy with it and doesn't necessarily use it. Now I hope it does go into every single one of the decks, because it was kind of like it should have. It's perfect synergy, and now hopefully it just doesn't mean they lose that tempo loss for too long. They actually have that survivability for that to be relevant, so they're seeing this literally undying legion of Necron warriors, and I would love that. So yeah, I really appreciate these change. I do not believe this will make Necrons overpowered in any sort of way. I think they will make them certainly a lot more interesting, certainly a lot more playable. Yes, there's some other things I did mention in my last update. For example, of course, the Imperial Guard changes. That was a quick update where they changed pretty much the 3 things I said. Well, I only said 2 things, didn't I? They even changed the 3rd thing, which was Valkyrie drop, which I was thinking about including, but I wasn't necessarily sure. But they did change that as well. They also changed the 6 energy card, which 5 energy card which deployed 3 guys. Now it's a 6 energy, as I said. It needed to be changed to. The health change isn't like, it's like a meh. Instead of gaining armor, it gains health. They mostly do the same thing ish. It's a bit worse, but I think I'm fine with that, to be honest. It's not the end of the world. And now Vitus Griff, well, if anything, they were if anything, they overtuned it a bit too much, but I can definitely see why, because basically what it was beforehand, of course, it was a 5 energy card in a 6 energy body deploying a 4 energy unit. Now it's a 5 energy card in a 4 energy body deploying a 4 energy unit. So in theory, if you're able to get it off, you're still gaining value. You're still gaining above value rate. But if you're not able to get it off, all you have is a 4 energy flanker for 5 energy, which isn't great. But I think I'm fine with that, because then you have a bit of a trade-off, if anything. What I was trying to do beforehand was make an actual 5 energy flanker, where if you manage to get off, you get like a 9 energy unit as well. As a 9 energy. You get what I'm saying. So yes, that should also be mentioned. And those were very important changes for the Imperial Guard to make them not oppressive, which is very much a good thing. And now with this, Necrons coming back up, I think the game probably is in a really good space. And the only thing which hasn't actually changed is the Dark Angels and their roaming. Is it roaming Outriders? I think it's something like that. It's not. Oh no, that's roaming Outriders. What am I talking about? It's the 7 energy card legendary, which deployed a whole bunch of Deathwing Knights. Not Deathwing Knights. You know, I think you know what I'm talking about. Hopefully I've got something in the edit here where it pops up. It's this card. I think that 7 energy card needs a change. And so I think that's a little bit too strong. I think Dark Angels are probably going to be the best faction in the game right now. Because of that card, with the Gene Stealers being nerfed. And so hence I think Dark Angels are... They're not massively oppressive though. That's the thing. You can still beat them, even if they have the card. You can still beat them. It's just something you need to be wary about, and that is the only thing I would really say. Maybe certain factions could still get buffs. I don't know if this is enough for the Necrons, to be frankly honest, but it's a step in the right direction, and I really appreciate it. And they don't just make something massively overtuned. I'm not seeing anything absolutely broken here. You could also argue Ultramarines could you get some buffs, but then at the same time you could also say a nerf to Assault Doctrine if you know how to do that. Because right now Assault Doctrine feels like the only win con really for Ultramarines, which is a bit of a shame, but hey ho. Excuse me. But yeah, you could do that. You could also go for Tal could use a bit of a buff as well, because they seem a little bit weak. You know, it's just a few things here and there, but even still they can do some very powerful things. You know, their 6 energy cost Vanguard unit is extremely strong right now, personally. There's a lot of things I could say about a lot of stuff, but we're getting to the point where it's getting to a nuance, and if we're getting to nuance in terms of balance, then I'm thinking we're starting to get in a pretty good space. But yes, I think this Dark Angels, the Dark Angels card could use a change, and that's basically it. Hello, so we're on to the next part where we're talking about the orks, and this isn't to say, this is just the last minute changes which came in to the orc faction, which I felt were very much appropriate changes, which I absolutely loved. So I'm going to go through some of them, which I think, because this is just saying what good things EG have done to make this game not oppressive and not that continuous cycle of, oh, I've got to get the next new thing, because if the next new thing is way too strong than the rest of the stuff, and we get into this continuous cycle of just, oh, I need to get that now, I need to play the new faction, and I've got to play it this one way, and hence it becomes very boring and blah blah, and you're like there going, and then you just get into the next month, and then it's the next new faction, and then you have to play, because you nerfed in that old faction with their oppressive stuff now, and we all know it was oppressive from like, I don't know, the moment we saw it. And then you get the next faction where you see, and you're just like, it's that card which is going to be the next new oppressive thing. Yeah, great. And then there's all this rush to get those new cards, and you get into this continuous cycle, and it's just like, oh, great. So the first thing to talk about, which was last minute change, was this card. This was a 2 energy card, and what it would have been is everybody trying to get this card. This would have been it. Everybody trying to get all the beast cards. It would have not mattered what beast it was, so long as they just existed. You then play 2 of these, everything cost you less, and then now you basically lost pretty much no tempo, because you can do it turn 1, whatever, because it's a 2 energy card. And it basically, the best deck would have been some sort of Bruck deck, because he would have drawn cards and you would have hoped to get these, and then everything's massively discounted, and you just overwhelm your opponent with orcs. And since because they're the only one with an actual board wipe in this game, apart from sisters, kind of doesn't really count, to be frankly honest. Because it would have not worked against this. They would have not been able to get their faith in time to be able to deal with this. It causes huge problems, which were not fun, which would not be fun either. Thank goodness that they made this a free energy card, and it means that it's not overly oppressive. I think it's perfectly fine, in quotation marks. It might be still too much out of free energy card for what it is. Maybe you need to get rid of the draw beast part, and as a free energy card that might be perfectly fine. It might also just need, it might be a 4 energy card, I don't know. I suspect there's still going to be a little bit too much, but it's not going to be massively oppressive card. So I'm glad this is not a 2 energy card, and there are last minute changes which they made to the faction. Also, this card, this used to make your friendly beast cost 2 less. Now it's only costs 1 less, which I think is really appropriate, because in theory what you could do is that, particularly beforehand, you could play 2 of these, so everything now costs 2 less. You could then play this guy for 4 energy, and now every single beast which costs 4 less now costs 0. You can kind of get how that could be a problem. So now with those changes then being massively delayed, plus also the only decrease in cost by 1, it means that even if you played both of those, managed to play both of those, you can only decrease the cost of the beast by 3, and you do have a substantial tempo loss with it being 2 free energy turns effectively to be able to get this off. So, and you can't be doing this on curve either, so you're not going to be able to gain, well, it's a big deal beforehand, is that you could play 2 energy this, on your free energy you could use this as well. This will make this guy a 4 energy, and then you could flood the board. in principle, that would work. And so hence, I'm really happy that they also changed this as well. So it's in line with many other 6 drops in the game being only -1 cost. And I think that was really smart. And basically, yeah, that's what I think about the orc changes. I'll go over some other cards which could potentially need change. One of them is Power of the War. I think this is a 5 energy card, to be frankly, 5 energy card? A 5-star card, to be frankly honest. It's, you know, rating of 1 to 5 star. This is on the 5 scale, personally, for me. I think you can pretty much fit this in almost any strategy. It will never be bad in any strategy. And that kind of makes me kind of go, well, then it's too cheap as a 3 energy card. This should be a Pacific card. This should be a good card in like an aggro deck where you go for like a swarm deck. That's what it should be. I know you can go sort of like an aggro swarm, but you could go, for example, like a proper swarm deck would be going that green horde, and then you also play this, and then you can get a really powerful combo finish with your warlord, because your green horde enables getting a whole bunch of guys, and they enable your warlord getting crazy mob value. Or you can just go an aggro deck, which means that you just get a bit more attack than you're supposed to every single turn, damaging face. So I think this could be a 4 energy card, because I don't see how this is a bad card in any deck, because it's just too much right now as it is. Something else which I also think which could have a look at is more Grog Scragbag. The reason why I particularly say this is because I see this guy is effectively Gordrang with Stomp and 40 HP. As it stands, it deals 1 damage and it gives +1 to your warlord, so it effectively does 2 additional damage. That's basically Gordrang's ability to deal 2 additional damage. There's 40 HP and also Stomp. I guess you don't get the healing if you happen to slay, but you don't really want to be doing that with Gordrang. You want to be punching face anyway and just trying to burn down your opponent, which is what this guy effectively does. So the only disadvantage this guy has over Gordrang is, since because it's 2 attack to your warlord, it does mean that it's not quite as much burn potential, like aggro potential, I suppose, with proper Killy. Because on that 1 turn, Gordrang will be able to do 1 additional damage than Mossrog Scrogbag. But when you really think about it, they basically do the same thing. Just a generic turn, deal 1 damage to enemy, give +1 to your warlord until your next turn. It just has Stomp, it has more survivability, it has better combos with like if you were to do the proper Killy, there's also a 2 energy card which has been recently added. The old ways, because it gives +2 to a friendly unit, that could be just this guy who already has Stomp, so you're able to go maybe your warlord power, proper Killy, and also that. Your proper Killy's then make it 3 attack, his warlord power make it 4 attack, so then it gets 6 attack, where Gordrang will have to, can't even get the +2 attack from this. You have to play the old ways, and then you have to play the old ways again. Which, I think the old ways is still useful, giving Stomp to Gordrang. It's just, it's even better than this guy, because then it's able to enable combo potential. So I think it's a bit, this guy's a bit too much. It's a 40, I feel like they play very similarly in terms of playstyle, and I think this guy is just kind of better at it. So I think what he does is too strong. But yeah, apart from that, those are just some really minor things, and we have to wait. To be frankly honest, with all this, we'll have to wait to see. This card could still be too much. I don't know yet, but I think it's not going to be massively oppressive, which I'm happy with. And even if this is a better version of Gordrang, it's not. I don't think it's going to guarantee win every single game, which I really appreciate. So I think this game, with the update, with the new cards from Orks, it's finally, for the first time in ever, in a good place. See you all next time.